So what if the only difference between like an enlightened sage, someone who just walks through life completely at peace, and an ordinary person grinding through their daily stress isn't magic?
Right, like it's not some kind of divine intervention or, I don't know, a superpower.
Exactly. What if it's literally just a matter of having the correct user manual for reality?
I mean, that completely flips the script on how we view peace of mind, because we all get dropped into this existence, but nobody hands us the instruction booklet, so we just sort of bump into the walls, get bruised, and hope for the best.
Yeah, and that's exactly the premise we're exploring in today's deep dive. We are unpacking this genuinely mind-bending discussion based on excerpts from an ancient text called Thrice Yearning and Chanting.
Which sounds super dense, but it's actually incredibly practical.
It really is. And a big reason it's so accessible is how we're getting the information. This analysis is actually produced by Buddha's Practice Incorporated out in Australia.
Hmm.
And the core of it features consultant Benny, who's the main speaker breaking all these concepts down, and Venerable Ivy, who takes on this role of a seeker of Buddhist teachings, just asking these incredibly piercing, practical questions.
Right. And we should also mention the production comes to us from Notebook, Lem, and Dawn.
Yes, exactly.
The dynamic between Benny and Ivy is honestly what makes the source material so rich. Because, when you hear ancient Buddhist text, you immediately assume it's going to be, like, abstract and totally disconnected from modern life.
Oh, for sure. You think it's just going to be old poetry.
Right. But consultant Benny takes these centuries-old verses and translates them into this. I mean, it's basically a masterclass on human psychology, the mechanics of focus, and really the literal fabric of reality.
It's wild. I want to start right at the foundation, though, because to even begin reading this user manual for reality, Benny points out that we have to understand what our minds are actually made of.
Yeah, the basic material.
Exactly. The text uses this foundational concept. Mind is Buddha. And to explain that, it uses an ancient dairy metaphor, saying that ghee and butter both come from milk.
Right.
They look completely different, they behave differently, but their essence is identical. It's a state of is and is not.
Which, I mean, that can sound like a total riddle at first. It is milk, but
Yeah.
it's not milk.
Yeah.
But Benny brilliantly modernizes this by swapping the dairy out for the states of water.
Oh, I love that part.
Yeah, it's the exact same principle, but so much easier to visualize. Think about H2O. It can exist as ice, as liquid water, or as gas.
I found that analogy just so immediately relatable. Like if we think about human nature as H2O, we see it shift based on conditions.
Hmm.
The text calls these karmic conditions, but Benny just compares them to temperature.
Right, which makes perfect sense.
So if the temperature drops, you get ice. Ice is H2O, but it's rigid, it's freezing, it has these sharp edges. We all know people who operate in an ice state, right? They're so hardened that simply bumping into their personality literally hurts the people around them.
Yeah, we've all met an ice person, and then, if the temperature or the karmic condition changes, ice melts into liquid water.
Mm-hmm.
The sharp edges disappear.
It looks totally different.
Exactly. And it behaves differently. It's softer. But Benny makes this fascinating psychological observation here. Water has immense pressure. It can literally drown you.
That part actually stopped me in my tracks. Because we usually think of water as entirely positive, right? Just passive and flowing.
Mm-hmm.
But smothering toxic love in a relationship is exactly like that. It doesn't look like the sharp anger of ice, but the pressure is so intense it suffocates the other person.
Wow, yeah, that is a perfect real-world application.
Yeah.
And then you apply even more heat, changing the conditions again, and the water becomes gas, it becomes steam.
It's liberated.
Right, it doesn't cut you, it doesn't drown you, it just rises. But the underlying secret, and this is really the core of the text, is that the ice, the water, and the steam are all exactly the same substance. They're all just H2O.
Wait, let me make sure I'm fully grasping this, though. When Benny refers to all of these states as having an empty nature, or I think the Buddhist term is sunyata, it doesn't mean our minds are literally an empty void.
Exactly. No, that is a massive misconception. Empty in this context doesn't mean like a black hole where nothing exists.
Okay.
It means the underlying substance is empty of a fixed permanent form. Because it has no permanent shape, it has the infinite potential to become anything. The ice isn't permanently ice. It's just H2O temporarily playing the role of ice.
So the essence is pure potential. Which leads right into another analogy from the text that I think takes us a whole step further. The analogy of gold.
All right.
Yeah, the ancient verses talk about golden hairpins, bracelets, bottles, and plates. They all serve different functions, but they're all forged from pure gold.
This is where we shift from just, understanding our nature to actively shaping our reality. According to Benny's breakdown, awakened beings, the sages we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
understand this physics of the universe.
They know the rules.
Exactly. They recognize that their true underlying nature is pure gold. And because they know the material they're working with, they can consciously craft that gold into a beautiful hairpin or a plate. They create perfect, intentional manifestations.
But those of us who haven't read the manual, well, we don't know the rules. We don't realize we're working with pure gold. The text actually has a phrase for what we do instead. It translates roughly to acting blindly on emotion, indulging the self in wrongdoings.
Yeah, we just let our impulses drive the bus. And Benny points out the tragic result of this. Instead of taking our pure gold and crafting it into something beautiful, we take the purity of our own minds and we shovel dirt, sand, and gravel right into it. We mix our pure potential with the toxic slag of our petty grievances, our greed, our daily irritations. We basically devolve our own pure gold into an unrefined, painful gold mine.
That's such a profound way to look at personal growth. It's not about going out into the world and acquiring some new magical piece. It's literally just the process of refining the dirt back out of the gold you already have.
Exactly.
Which brings up a very immediate reality check for you listening right now. When you woke up this morning and looked at your phone, were you crafting pure gold? Or did you read one annoying email, let your emotions take over, and immediately start tossing dirt and gravel into your mind?
Oh, it happened so fast, just one email. And that practical challenge leads directly into the next major hurdle the text addresses. Because logically, if we're all fundamentally made of this pure gold, and our nature is already perfect H2O, why does peace of mind feel like it's light years away?
The ancient text leans right into that exact feeling. It describes the Pure Land, which is the state of ultimate peace and awakening, as being 100,000 million stages away.
Which is a deeply discouraging metric.
Right. But then, almost in the same breath, the verse says East and West are not separated.
It's a deliberate paradox.
Yeah.
It's totally designed to shatter our assumptions about dimensions.
Wow.
Venerable Ivy actually asks about this massive distance, and consultant Benny explains that it's not a physical reality at all. It all ties back to the concept that one mind manifests everything. If the reality you experience is just a manifestation of your mind's state, then physical spatial distance is just an illusion.
Okay, I can stretch my brain to accept that spatial distance might be an illusion, but I have to push back here, and this is essentially what Venerable Ivy does in the discussion.
Yeah, it's a very natural pushback.
Right, because space is one thing, but time is a real measurable constraint. If I am an ordinary, messy person whose mind is currently full of gravel and dirt, I am not becoming an enlightened sage by tomorrow afternoon.
No, definitely not.
It's going to take me lifetimes of time to refine that gold. Time has to be real.
It feels incredibly real. But Benny answers that skepticism by dismantling time in the exact same way as space. The discussion uses the concept of the 12 periods, which was the ancient Chinese way of dividing the 24-hour day.
Okay, the 12 periods.
Yeah, and Benny explains that time, in the context of awakening, is an illusion of trajectory.
An illusion of trajectory. Walk me through how that actually works.
Okay, picture a long road. Far down that road is a sage who has been walking toward awakening for thousands of miles. You are at the very beginning of the road.
Okay, so I'm miles behind.
Physically, chronologically, yes, there seems to be a massive gap between you. But if in this exact moment, during these 12 periods of your day, your thoughts are actively oriented toward awakening, if you're trying to act from that place of pure gold, you are instantly on the exact same trajectory as the sage.
Oh, interesting.
The text uses the term tong tu, which means on the same journey.
So because my compass is pointing the exact same direction as the sage's compass, the distance between us just stops mattering.
Precisely. In the realm of the mind, sharing the exact same trajectory means you are identical in that moment. The illusion of time collapses.
But there's a flip side to that, isn't there? Like, what if my compass isn't pointed toward awakening? What if my 24 hours are spent doom scrolling, looking for a dopamine hit, getting wrapped up in office gossip?
Right, just fulfilling basic desires.
Yeah.
Then you aren't just standing still on the path, waiting to start. This is a crucial distinction Benny makes. If your mind is consumed by superficial pursuits, you are actively moving in the opposite direction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're accelerating toward deeper delusion. You're actively building that distance of 100,000 million stages.
So peace isn't a destination on a map. It is literally the exact direction of your very next thought.
Exactly.
It's a moment-by-moment orientation. But that instantly begs the question, if everything depends on the direction of our thoughts, how do we steer? What is the actual mechanism inside our minds that controls this trajectory?
The source material identifies the steering wheel as a concept translated as recognition, or Ren in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Benny explains that the true mind's most basic fundamental function is just perception.
Just noticing things.
Right. It perceives reality, seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with perception itself.
So where does the machinery break down?
The breakdown happens when human ego rushes in and layers arbitrary subjective concepts over that pure perception. We don't just see a thing, we immediately label it. We declare it objectively good or bad, sweet or sour. We pollute reality with our opinions.
The example used in the discussion perfectly illustrates this. Like, someone looks at a piece of clothing and declares, that is universally, objectively, an ugly dress.
Yes, that's a great example.
But it's not. The fabric itself doesn't possess the physics of ugly. The ugliness is a subjective hallucination that you arbitrarily glued onto the fabric.
And we do that with everything. We do it to our jobs, our spouses, our daily inconveniences. We just live in a self-generated hallucination. True cultivation, as Benny outlines, means stripping away those subjective labels and aligning with the actual objective principles of reality.
Like concentration and wisdom.
Exactly.
And when you actually manage to do that, the results described in the text are wild. There are these highly poetic lines, Jasper hair mark shines brightly and purple gold face shakes like thunder.
Such intense imagery.
Right. Venerable Ivy naturally asks what on earth that imagery even means. And Benny breaks it down beautifully. The Jasper hair mark, shining brightly, represents a state where a person sees the mechanics of the universe, the actual rules of reality, with crystal clear, unobstructed vision in every single action they take.
And then the purple gold face shaking like thunder is the execution of that vision. When a person aligns perfectly with the universe's mechanics, without any of that subjective pollution we talked about, their actions are earth-shattering to ordinary people.
I was thinking about this in terms of a modern tech analogy. Imagine taking a fully functioning smartphone back to the 12th century.
Oh, they would lose their minds.
Completely terrified. It would literally shake them like thunder. They'd think you were a wizard performing impossible magic. But you aren't using magic, you're just utilizing the physical rules of the universe, like electricity and radio waves that they just don't understand yet.
Right, exactly.
And Benny points out that the ancient Buddhas did this kind of reality-bending work without machines, relying entirely on pure mental power or sansamlai.
That concept of mental power, Inglai, is really the engine of this entire philosophy.
Oh,
Benny uses the analogy of a magnifying glass to explain how it works.
okay.
If you hold a magnifying glass perfectly steady, it gathers the scattered rays of the sun and focuses them into a single, intense point. That point becomes so hot, it can literally melt steel. Your mental power is the exact same. When it's laser-focused, it's unstoppable.
But to melt steel, the glass has to be perfectly still. If your hand is shaking or, you keep waving the magnifying glass around.
It doesn't even warm the paper. And this is where Benny issues a very stark warning. A scattered mind, what Buddhists call the monkey mind, constantly jumping from one anxiety or desire to the next, doesn't just fail to achieve great things. It actively degrades your life.
It ruins everything.
Yeah, it ruins your focus at work. It prevents you from being present in your relationships.
And Benny traces that scattered mind to a terrifying endpoint, right? Like, if you constantly chase arbitrary desires and never focus that magnifying glass, you eventually reach a state of what Benny calls complete dementia.
Right, and they clarify this isn't necessarily the clinical medical condition.
Right.
It's a profound spiritual and mental blindness. It's a state where a person is so disconnected from the truth of reality that they just blindly shove things in their mouth without even knowing if it's edible. They have completely lost the ability to recognize truth.
They've traded the steering wheel for a blindfold. And when you realize that our focused mental power has the capacity to melt steel, you start to see why misusing that power is so catastrophic.
Oh, absolutely.
If you point that laser at a negative emotion, the destruction is immense. Which brings us directly to one of the most vivid and urgent metaphors in the entire text.
The metaphor of the cool moon and the merit cloud.
Let's look at the first half of that imagery. The cool moon is contained in all water. Consultant Benny gets incredibly passionate during this part of the analysis. It almost feels like, I don't know, frustration on behalf of humanity.
Yeah, you can really feel it.
Benny explains that human self-nature, the absolute core of who we are, is inherently bright, clear, and perfectly cool. It's exactly like the crisp reflection of the moon on a still pond.
It is a default state that's completely devoid of what they call reneo, the hot afflictions. It has no fever of greed, no burning heat of anger, no boiling anxiety of always needing more. Your default setting is a cool sanctuary.
So, hearing Benny describe this naturally peaceful default state, an analogy immediately came to my mind. If our mind is a cool, fireproof sanctuary,
Yeah.
why do we constantly act like arsonists?
Arsonists, that is exactly what we're doing.
Think about a normal morning. You wake up, your mind is relatively clear, the cool moon is there, then someone cuts you off in traffic. It's literally a 3-second delay in your life. But instead of letting it go, you walk into the sanctuary of your own mind, strike a match, and light a massive bonfire of road rage.
Yeah, you just sit in that burning heat for the rest of your commute.
We light fires of jealousy over social media posts, fires of bitterness over old arguments. We willingly burn down our own careers, we incinerate our focus, and we torch our relationships. I mean, it is the ultimate form of self-sabotage.
It's deeply tragic because the suffering is entirely self-inflicted. We are the ones holding the matches. But the text doesn't just leave us in the ashes. It offers a counterweight. The second half of the metaphor says, "The cloud of merit crowns every mountain."
What does the cloud of merit represent in this context?
Well, the cloud of merit is the perfect, unbiased manifestation of the universe. What Benny is explaining here is that reality does not discriminate. Whether you're a massive, towering, majestic mountain, or you're a tiny, insignificant anthill made of loose dirt, the universe covers you exactly the same.
The rain falls equally.
Exactly. There is zero bias in the fabric of reality.
But clearly, the experience of being a majestic mountain is very different from the experience of being an anthill. If the universe treats them the same, what dictates the difference?
The only difference is what you recognize yourself to be. It comes right back to that steering wheel, that mechanism of recognition and identity.
Wow.
If you look at yourself and you identify with smallness, with petty grievances, with being a victim of traffic, if you recognize yourself as an ant, you immediately collapse your reality into the tiny, restricted world of an ant. You trap yourself.
Right.
But if you recognize your true, pure gold nature, you become the towering mountain. The universe perfectly supports whichever reality you choose to identify with.
The power of that choice is staggering. It places the entire responsibility for your experience of life squarely on your own shoulders. And, it really highlights the genius of the person who wrote these verses. We should really talk about the author, National Master Zongfeng, because Benny has immense, almost staggering praise for him in the discussion.
Yeah, the literary comparison Benny makes is really fascinating, especially if you have any background in Chinese history or literature.
Right. Benny says Zongfeng's literary and spiritual capability is absolutely top tier. To give context, Benny compares his high-level capacity to someone like Empress Wu Zetian.
Which is high praise.
But then Benny brings up legendary, famous Chinese poets like titans of literature like Su Dampo, Li Bai, and Du Fu. And in this specific context, Benny categorizes them as third tier.
Calling Li Bai and Du Fu third tier is an incredibly bold statement. I mean, they are considered the absolute masters of the craft.
It sounds crazy until Benny explains why. Benny points out that ordinary people can easily grasp the meanings of Li Bai or Du Fu's poetry. Why? Because those poems are fundamentally about mundane human emotions.
Right.
They write about feeling homesick, missing friends, drinking wine, feeling sad about the passage of time. It's beautifully written, but it's entirely grounded in the subjective emotional pollution we talked about earlier. It's the human ego labeling things.
It's poetry about the dirt we mix into the gold.
Yeah.
Whereas Zongfeng isn't writing about subjective human feelings at all. He is literally writing the underlying physics of reality. He's articulating the boundary between form and emptiness. It operates in a completely different stratosphere of human capability.
Which is why it requires someone like Consultant Benny to actually unpack the mechanics of it for us.
Exactly. It's the difference between writing a beautiful song about a computer and writing the actual code that makes the computer run.
That is the perfect way to put it. So, taking a step back to look at the code we've unpacked today from this incredible deep dive.
We've covered a profound shift in perspective. I mean, we started by understanding that our minds are like water. Our essence is pure, But we shift states from biting ice to suffocating liquid to liberated steam based entirely on our conditions.
Mm-hmm.
We realize that our ultimate nature is pure gold. And our daily task isn't to find new gold, but simply to stop tossing the dirt of our blind, impulsive emotions into the mix.
And we also dismantled the terrifying illusion of time and space. We learned that peace isn't 100,000 million stages away. Because if we orient our trajectory toward awakening in this very moment, the distance just collapses. We're instantly walking hand in hand with the sages.
But to maintain that trajectory, we have to grasp the steering wheel of perception. We have to stop pasting our subjective, arbitrary labels of ugly or bad onto reality. We have to focus our mental magnifying glass until it can melt steel, rather than letting a scattered monkey mind lead us into spiritual blindness.
And most urgently, we have to stop playing the arsonist. We have to stop walking into the perfectly cool sanctuary of our own minds and setting fires of anger and greed that burn down our own lives.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering implication from the source material. We know that the universe's cloud of merit crowns every single mountain with perfect equality. And we know that the reality you experience is determined entirely by the mechanism of what you recognize yourself to be.
So the question you have to ask yourself right now, in this exact moment, is what are you subconsciously choosing to identify as? Are you taking a breath, recognizing your pure gold nature, and standing as the towering mountain? Or are you letting the minor frustrations of your day convince you to shrink down, trapping yourself in the dirt as the ant?
The universe is ready to support whichever reality you choose. The manual is in your
It
hands.
always has been. It's just a matter of wiping the dirt off the pages and reading it. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. Until next time, take a moment to step back from the heat of the day and see if you can find your own cool moon.